That's a very good game. Well, yes, that's a very good game. I have real problems with a lot of how the game presents itself to new players, which is interesting because I think one of the things that this game does, I think part of the like a pillar of design for this game, is that it's not a game that is necessarily for gamers. It doesn't want to rely too much on a literacy of games, of any kind of game, of roguelites or other kinds of narrative games, RPGs. Like, it is not beholden to any of that language, that I think is a barrier to entry a lot of the time for people who don't play a lot of games to sit down and play a game. A lot of games are advanced in what their expectations of you to sort of inherently understand are. And I think that Fallen London is not a game for gamers. It's not a game that is designed to build on that legacy. Certainly it draws from it, right? But it draws from it in its own way. And it's surprising to me that I think it is also really inaccessible to non-gamers. I think that, like, some of what's going on here is it works in a different way than I expect it to, because that's not how I'm used to games working. But I played Echo Bazaar. Like, it's not entirely unfamiliar to me, and I think that a lot of it is complex enough that it would be likewise difficult to understand for people who are coming to this cold, who, like, don't even have some of the structural ideas of a run-based game. Understanding that as a pattern, like, I guess it does present you with that pretty well. It does say, like, be bold, let your captain die. That's gonna happen. You'll play again. You'll do better the next time. So that part of it, I guess it does do. But a lot of, the most accessible part of this, I think, is the idea of trading commodity goods, right? You're a sailor and you're going port to port, and you're doing stuff, but you can buy and sell goods. And that part of the game is not fleshed out. It's not sort of like, it exists, but it's not a core part of the game, and it's not highly rewarding. It's not a bad thing to engage in, but it's not gonna, like, it's not profitable enough that it is the cornerstone of your play strategy. So a lot of that is weird to me. A lot of that is strange. This is like Signs of the Sojourner. This is a game that is very much about exploring the narrative space, right? Not knowing what's going to happen when you go out there, and having some sort of ideas of structure and things that you're going to do, but being surprised by what happens. And when the sister's house burned down, like, I was very surprised by that. I was not expecting it. It's a game that thrives on that, and I think maybe because it's run based, or maybe because the world is so mysterious, or I don't know, maybe because there's more of a tactical element to it. I actually found that more interesting than in Science of the Sojourner. In Science of the Sojourner, I find it very frustrating that I couldn't sort of plan out what was going to happen. In this game, maybe it's just that it gave me some things that I could plan out, and made it sort of clear that those plans were going to be disrupted all to hell by other stuff. But I could actually plan out, like, where I was going to go and how long it was going to take and how much fuel I was going to burn, and those things held more or less true. And so maybe that was enough to, like, make it feel satisfying, even though in the grand scheme of things, that mattered less, and certainly it mattered less to the narrative than the surprising weird stuff that would happen along the way, and the skill checks that I would succeed or fail. So yeah, I enjoyed that very much. I will definitely play more of this game. It's also a very good, I think, like, I don't know what the place for it is going to be. It kind of sucks you in. This is a game that I feel like passes time, because it would engage me, I think, on a couple of different levels. On the level of navigating the space and trying to get to a port to get the port report without running out of food or getting eaten by an iceberg. And it's also sort of like there is a layer of, what are you supposed to be doing? What are the stories that are going on? What are the places that you can discover? How much are you risking to like go into uncharted territory versus staying where it's safe, but you're not gonna be able to sort of maintain, you're not gonna be able to survive if that's all you do. Good game with rough edges, says Cubert. Yeah, I think that's true. I think I do believe that. Toby Winter says, I'm remembering the Fallen London community situation, though. I'm wondering if that context would have increased understanding. I had friends who were big into it, and it seemed inscrutable from the outside. That's a great point, Toby. I don't remember when I played Echo Bazaar. I don't remember if there was like a wiki. I think I played it maybe before, before game wikis were really big, like exhaustive community documentation of games. I would bet that this game has a thriving community and that there is a lot of like community resources that exist. It didn't even occur to me to look. And most of the time I feel like I mean, because there's a lot in this game that is ripe for that. That is like, oh Jesus, I don't know. What's the deal? What's the deal with the this is a Fallen London problem for me. It's like the stories are really evocative and the names are very cool, but I do not remember any of the names of anything. But like, what's the deal with one of my crew members? I want to know more about like what that story is or what's going to happen if I engage them in such a way, and that's the kind of stuff that would get documented today in a game wiki, in a what are the outcomes of different choices. There's a ton of that stuff in Sunless Sea, so I feel like that has to exist, and maybe because that exists and a lot of people maybe find this game through a more of a grassroots community thing, right? Like the non-gamer audience for this game is not reading Polygon by definition. They're not looking at like Steam's latest releases. If they find this game, they're going to find it through other avenues, and those are probably going to be, I don't know, social media, like community-based things, and that might lead them to the game through the wiki or something. So maybe that does make more sense. That's a really, really good point, Toby. I didn't think about it. Dusky says, would a mini-map and an actual quest tracker help the game? Are your gripes entirely due to the interface? Are my gripes entirely due to the interface? I think my gripes are entirely due to the interface. I don't think that I have a problem with, like, at a fundamental level with any of how the game works and how the systems are pitted against each other, or how the narrative works or is revealed. I think that all of my issues are UI, UX. They're all presentation. I don't think that a mini map and a quest tracker would solve all of my problems, although I do think that a quest tracker, I feel like a quest tracker is something that should be there. I do think that that would be beneficial. I also kind of do think that a mini map or some kind of like adjustment, I think that the ocean faring interface could be improved a little bit. I don't totally, I mean, like, there's something to opening up the map, checking your chart and like trying to gauge where you are relative to things and trying to sail in the right direction. Like, I don't actually hate that, and I don't know that that's bad. It's rough. It feels rough. It's not super smooth in terms of an experience, but it feels appropriate to the, like, you're navigating a boat on like this weird ocean, and that takes some work. So I don't totally hate that. I do hate the, like, not the story, and not the way that the story is procedurally delivered, but the interface for that delivery, the interface for when you stop at a port, how things are actually presented on the screen, both from an interface standpoint and from just a user experience standpoint of, like, as a user, what are the things that I want to accomplish, and how do I understand the interface as it relates to those things? When I go to a port, I want to get the port story. I want to use my something awaits you. Like, those should be presented very clearly in a way that is at least somewhat separated from the other things that exist. And the other things that exist should be presented in a way that makes it where their costs are exposed, where I'm supposed to, as a player, understand that, like, this is a thing that is going to increase my terror. I shouldn't get that by mousing over a tiny little picture and have it, and reading, you know, this is unlocked because you have more than 75 terror, and then sort of like try to infer, what does that mean? The game, I feel like, needs to decide either it doesn't want to be clear about what the, like, costs and benefits and outcomes of these stories are, because it's a game about sort of like narrative discovery and weird mysterious things that you turn to page 87 and maybe you're gonna die. But if it's making that choice, it should make that choice deliberately, and it should sort of be designed around that choice, and maybe that involves sort of not being quite so Iron Man mode, whatever, being a little bit more sort of designed around multiple autosaves and the, I mean, you everybody reads a choose your own adventure book with their hand stuck between the pages in order to save their place, so that they can discover the sort of weird, interesting things that are going to happen and not be stuck with them, because they're unpredictable, and often they are, like, cruel and frankly uninteresting as endings. They're interesting as sort of like little narrative tangents, and I think that this game abounds with that stuff. But if it's gonna, like, tell you that it values like moving forward through failure, then I think it needs to be designed around that. Or it needs to decide, like, yes, you are choosing these things from a like economic standpoint of you have a constellation of resources, and you're going to spend some of them to get other ones, and different places are going to offer you different exchange rates, and that's also cool, and it can be that, but the interface for that is much more transparent, is much more sort of like communicative about what it is that you are doing. And it doesn't need to choose just one all the time, but right now it has a singular interface that tries to do both of these things, and it does them by sort of being generic in a way that I think is fundamentally unhelpful to the player. I find that really frustrating. I wish that had been updated as sort of like a user experience philosophy from the original days of Echo Bazaar. I think that is a holdover from how that game sort of looked and presented itself, and that feels like really... I think it feels really out of date, even though it's a convention that's so different from other game conventions that, you know, it doesn't age in quite the same way. I think it still feels like it has aged in that it hasn't been refined, right? It feels sort of prototypey as a way of presenting information, and the game, I think, has had time now to mature into something better. So, I'm just skimming the chat. There's other good conversation in here, but yeah. I mean, I think we sort of have come to... No, Ghost Stalker, I'm thinking, like, what is it in XCOM where it's Iron Man, right? Iron something, where you get an achievement, or there is a mode of the game where you're not allowed to save, and like save scum that like protects against that. Isn't it Iron Man? It just sounds weird to say Iron Man because all I can think of is Tony Stark, but Iron Man mode, yeah, yes. That is what it is. Cool. I think this was really good. Pitsy. Okay, before I go, Pitsy asked, did you play the Netflix Black Mirror game Bandersnatch? I did. I actually assigned that to my experimental games class because it came out sort of right around the beginning of that class one year. And it was a good discussion topic, I think, like, and worthwhile. There was enough in it to sort of make it interesting to talk about. It's not something that has stayed on the syllabus. It's not sort of enough of an experimental game, I think, that I keep going back to it. But yeah, I was really excited when that came out. I think... Bandersnatch is another example to me of a game, an experience that is breaking some ground in terms of like form, in a way that it's very difficult to do that and be remembered for how good your content was. I guess what I'm saying is that, like, I have problems with Bandersnatch. I don't think it's great, but I think it's cool. And what I would like from Bandersnatch is that other people make other interactive movies for Netflix or for whoever. I would love for there to be more exploration of that form. And I think Bandersnatch did some things that were interesting around sort of like it did some like meta commentary and some time loopiness, and some of that stuff I thought was like interesting. Some of it I felt like got lost in the story that it was telling. But it had a nice mechanic of like keeping track of where you sort of made an interesting decision, so that when you branch off into a place where your character dies or something, it can very helpfully offer you like, well, that was fun. Do you want to go back to somewhere else? Because if you made a different decision there, like things would go differently, and that would also probably be fun. I thought it was really smart about that in a way that like brute forcing a choose your own adventure isn't necessarily. Like a lot of the time you find yourself in a branch where, okay, this choice doesn't really matter that much. If I go left or right, like maybe it takes a little bit longer, but the same thing happens, or things are just a little bit different. It's not that interesting. So I have to like retrace my steps back a ways before I find a branch that's actually I'm going to care about. And that was the thing that I thought Bandersnatch did well, was that it was tracking, not formally, not in terms of like mapping out the narrative, where do you want to go. It felt like it was much more trying to help you find other interesting endings that you had missed. And that felt very accessible. That felt very sort of friendly to an audience, which I thought was cool. I don't know that it was enough of an innovation that I feel like Bandersnatch is going to go down in history as anything in particular, except if it like breaks ground, if other people are able to follow it. And it feels like that has not happened in the last couple of years. But maybe it just hasn't happened yet. I still have some hope for that. Speaking of other games, have you played or seen The Final Station? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think I know that game. I'll look that up. Yeah, I'll look that up. Interesting. Okay. I have another appointment tomorrow. So I'm not going to be streaming tomorrow afternoon. I will be back next week. Wednesday might be cut short, but I think I will be able to do at least a short stream, and we'll start a new game. I think it's going to be What Remains of Edith Finch, which I have never played, but I'm really eager to play. So we're going to try that out. And I will look up The Final Station and figure out what that is. Thank you for the recommendation. But that's going to be it for me this week. Have a good rest of your week. Have a good weekend. I'll see folks on Monday for Mostly Walking, and then we'll start something new next week. It'll be a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me for Sunless Sea. I enjoyed this game, and it was great to have people to sort of talk to and chat about stuff while I was playing it, and get some hints from, because those were very, very useful in the second run. All right, I'll see everybody later. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you next time.